I hated Majora's Mask when it first released. I was 11 at the time, and I hated it for completely irrational reasons. First off, I didn't actually play it back then. My brother and I, we loved Ocarina of Time. And when we saw the commercials for Majora's Mask, we thought, this is a cash grab. We thought, did they really make a whole Zelda game based off of the boring mask trading sequence from Ocarina of Time? Besides that, it felt like it was something that just looked like it was just being weird for the sake of being weird. So I assumed through the rest of my childhood that Majora's Mask was a shallow game, and that misjudgment actually caused me to take a break from the Zelda series for a bit. After growing up, I started hearing from friends that Majora's Mask was a masterpiece in gaming, and how it's so deep because it's a game about death disguised as a kid's game. This intrigued me. So as this was quite a few years later, 2014 to be exact, I got the game on the Wii Virtual Console and played it. The game held my attention more than any game I played at that time. It was different, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I was so happy to have my preconceived notions from my childhood proven wrong, but my experience with it was barely scratching the surface. Over the years, I'd watched videos talk about how Majora's Mask was about grief, with the theories of it being referenced to the stages of grief: denial, bargaining, sadness, anger, and acceptance. As someone who didn't fully understand grief, I shrugged that off, being the edgelord I was, singing the praises of the game about being this dark, edgy masterpiece about death, literally and figuratively, until grief decided to give me a visit. In April of 2021, I started a Zelda series playthrough run, playing all the main entries mentioned in the Zelda Encyclopedia in order of release. I also took on this endeavor because at the same time my dad was in the hospital since the winter battling different conditions that subsequently came after catching COVID. It was a very stressful time, and I had a renewed love for the Zelda series, so I wanted to play through the games, and for quite a few of them, it would actually be my first time. My dad passed that July. He was the first close family member I've ever lost. The night he died, I was finishing Ocarina of Time. I felt so many emotions the next day. As my family was getting back to their daily routine, I was just alone in what felt like a melancholic ocean that kept bringing me back to the shores of sadness. I didn't know what to do, so I figured let's keep moving forward with the run, as I knew what I was feeling was grief, and I always heard that Majora's Mask is about grief. In a weird way, the timing of me getting to this game felt like it was some kind of sign from the universe. So I started it, wondering if it could help me cope in some way. At first, in the game, I felt so numb to it, feeling so empty as Skull Kid and the fairies messed with Link, the Story Epona in the Ocarina of Time. When Link was transformed into the Deku Shrub, I remember feeling lost, like being forced into a new world without any warning. Feeling so alone, compounding how I was already feeling in my grief, but I pressed on. I then made my way to the Happy Mask Salesman, and as I read his iconic line, "You've met with a terrible fate, haven't you?" I immediately was embraced with a feeling of deep, immense understanding. I felt like the feelings I felt at that time was truly felt by a team of people who made the game with this understanding of the complexity and nuance of loss. It's like hearing that line was reassurance that what I'm going through, I was not alone with that feeling. I cried in a weird mix of sadness from everything I felt with missing my dad, but also a weird sense of joy knowing I don't have to feel alone. I am playing proof that I am not alone, and so I continued to play feverishly, especially as I thought of my dad and thinking if he was here, he'd love to hear about the deep meaning that I'm finding in this game. I played the game going back and forth with areas at different times to complete the main quest and then the side quests after. With my new perspective on life, this made me think of the theory of each of the different locations representing the different stages of grief, and how going between them interchangeably was like what I was experiencing in real life and would continue to experience even till this day with my grief. Because in the end, at least for me, grief is not linear. I'd feel different feelings from time to time, but the most important part was to let myself feel those feelings and not bury them down. Even when you get to a point of acceptance, you may feel little bits of the other feelings. It's the random things that may remind you of who you lost, as it comes in waves. And with more time, the waves become smaller, and from what I've been told, they never completely go away. The way I've heard it explained that I like the most was Ray Kurzweil's explanation of how you kind of get used to missing that person, but you still miss them, even after many years or decades. Another thing I found fascinating was the design of Majora's Mask. The mask itself. From my personal experience when dealing with loss, it became more difficult to want to open up. And so I feel the design of the mask embodies that as being this purple heart that is bruised. It's like a bruised heart with spikes all around it, trying to ward those off from getting close to it. In dealing with grief, I actually felt an odd connection to that, where I felt I've become more individualistic. But when it comes to the visual symbolism here, I feel it's all part of the cautionary tale being told. To not give up. Never give up on the world and those who just want to add happiness to your life. At least that's what I get from it. Similar to my feelings on the symbolism behind the art design of the mask, what also resonated with me was the ending of Majora's Mask, when the happy mask salesman says, "Whenever there is a meeting, a parting is sure to follow." However, that parting need not last forever. Whether parting be forever or merely a short time, that is up to you. I'd say one of the biggest changes and motivators for me now comes from this, which is ultimately the understanding that life is short and finite, especially when it comes to seeing family or friends. It's best to not take it for granted, because you never know if your parting from them would still be temporary or would become forever. Now, I'm not usually the kind of person who'd say, "Oh, this song or this work of art saved me." But I do for Majora's Mask because I know and talked with others who went through the same or very similar kinds of loss, and it completely broke them. Some went down paths of life that changed their life for the worse. And I know that I do have an addictive personality. During the time my dad was in the hospital, I started drinking on pretty much a nightly basis. With 1 month, I actually drank every night that month. But thankfully, I got away from that and had the game to turn to and help me feel better. I heard stories and even saw one play out that following year where people would make big changes like quitting their job after dealing with loss. But thankfully, Majora's Mask got me ready to get back to my regular routine and be able to take everything one day at a time. So for me, yeah, it saved me. I'd like to know your stories. Did you have something that saved you like this, or in a similar kind of situation? Did Majora's Mask do the same for you, or was it something else? Please share in the comments what saved you, or anything that you'd like to add to the conversation about Majora's Mask. Thank you so much for watching. This is actually my first video essay. Please let me know, if you'd like me to do more. I know it's a little rough, but figured I'd just, try to put my thoughts out there and hopefully, add something different to the conversation about Majora's Mask, as I know that there's, plenty out there already. But if you would like me to do more, maybe make a video about my favorite Zelda game, you can subscribe to my channel and see one of the music playlists with the links here. By the way, I'm actually a musician who's made an album worth of chill lo-fi Zelda music remixes. Besides that, there's, tons of original stuff too, and you can hear it all on my channel here, as well as on the major music streaming services out there. I'd also like to thank Liam Triforce, as his videos and retrospectives are what inspired me the most to put my thoughts out there. If you'd like a more in-depth and technical retrospective on Majora's Mask, or pretty much any Zelda game, please check out his channel. I have a link to his video on Majora's Mask here to the left. Thanks again for watching, stay safe, and I'll see you on the tube side.